of Islam basically is a right wing. When I say right wing, I mean within the broader sense of black organizations that oppose racism, there is a range. We have a left wing, a far left, like the Black Panthers, let's say, and then we go all, more moderate groups like the NAACP. Well, the Nation of Islam, I would say, occupies a right wing within the tradition of, black resistance, and I'll explain why. It is basically a political protest group wrapped in the garb of all religions are pseudo. So let's not tell that their particular brand is more pseudo than the Pope's. When they talking about virgin births, baby, let me tell you, all bets are off, okay? So the roots of the Nation of Islam is actually in the Universal Negro Improvement Association led by Marcus Garvey. Okay, that's where they came from. That's where they assembled their cadre, and they were all members of, as they proceeded. So it is all religions, as far as I'm concerned, including the Catholic Church, are sects. But there is a kind of correlate between the sects and the cults. And to varying degree, Christianity is nothing but the cult of Jesus, right? So all religions have that tendency towards occultism. But the Nation of Islam was responding to something very real, and that is the oppression of black people. And through their paper, Muhammad Speaks, they reached hundreds of thousands of black people regularly and protested and showed indignation for the treatment of black people. I think to move it ahead, I want to go to Malcolm X, and that is the best thing that ever happened to the Nation of Islam. They probably had about 5,000 members when Malcolm X joined, and that was to be quadrupled and doubled and doubled and doubled under his participation. But because of the contradictory nature of the Nation of Islam, Malcolm X finally broke with them. I think the real issue that led him to want to get away from the Nation of Islam and to actually start to wage a fight against Elijah Muhammad, was the incident in 1961 in LA. They always pushing the free enterprise stuff, so a brother's selling suits. He worked at a dry cleaner's. He's selling, abandoned suits to whoever wants them. It's a hustle. The police intervene. What are you doing? What are you doing? One thing leads to another, and now there's a fight between the Nation of Islam people and the police. Eventually, this gets pretty intense. Police start getting hurt, and they kill one member of the Nation of Islam. And this is it. They went inside the mosque, had the men pull their pants down to their knees, ostensibly to check for weapons. And when Malcolm X hears about this, he is dispatched to LA, and they begin, under Malcolm X's leadership, to form what is essentially basically a bloc or united front against the racist police in defense of the Nation of Islam. And people, joined in. NAACP joined in, CORE joined in, because people could see, yeah, that's the way they do us. So there was unity building in defense of the Muslims. Well, the authorities get in touch with Elijah Muhammad and say, look here, man, we got a problem here. Now, this is getting out of hand in LA, so, y'all better cool it. And yes, they do talk to, FBI does call leaders of organizations and issue warnings. So Elijah Muhammad calls Malcolm X back home. And of course, Malcolm wanted to resist that, but what really turned him off is when he gets back, he says, all right, we're gonna put this in the Lord's hands. And then there was some accident, a plane accident in France, and he said, okay, and they put in the paper, in Muhammad's speech, all right, well, God done got the white man. We killed 200 of them, so that's justice. And all of us, that knew about this at the time said, all right, that's crazy, that's sick, that's weak, that's a capitulation. And that started Malcolm to start looking at the situation different, and eventually he left the Nation of Islam. Now, here is, we're talking about, though, the Nation of Islam. You get I think nobody can give you a better sense of what they were about than Malcolm X. And I tell you what, this is the quote, I think one of the best quotes that I have ever seen about the Nation of Islam. He's trying to explain to his audience why he is in opposition to Elijah Muhammad. So he says, okay, that the system is afraid to expose Elijah Muhammad. So he says why they're afraid to expose him. They know that if they expose him, that he has them all set. See, the black Muslim movement, it was organized in such a way that it attracted the most militant, the most uncompromising, the most fearless, and the youngest of the black people in the United States. That's who went into it. Those who didn't mind dying, those who didn't mind making a sacrifice. All they were interested in was freedom, justice, and equality, and they would do anything to see to it that it was brought about. These are the people who have followed him, meaning Elijah Muhammad, for all these years. But all these upfront militants have been held in check by an organization that doesn't take an active part in anything. And therefore it cannot be a threat to anybody because it's not going to do anything against anybody but itself. This is days after his house was bombed by the Nation of Islam. Don't you know? Now here comes, a confession on his part. Now I want you, that's why I think that's such an important illustration to put in your mind. Don't you know the way they threw that bomb in his house, they could have thrown it in a Ku Klux Klan house. Why do they want to bomb my house? Why don't they bomb the Klan? I'm going to tell you why. In 1960, December 1960, I was in the home of Jeremiah, minister of Atlanta, Georgia. I'm ashamed to say it. This is Malcolm X speaking about a transaction that took place. He is reporting to his audience. I'm ashamed to say it, but I'm going to tell the truth. I sat at the table myself with the heads of the Ku Klux Klan. I sat there myself with the heads of the Ku Klux Klan, who at that time were trying to negotiate with Elijah Muhammad so that they could make available to him a large area of land in Georgia, or I think it was South Carolina. They had some very responsible persons in the government who were involved in it and who were willing to go along with it. They wanted to make this land available to Elijah Muhammad so that his program of separation would sound more feasible to Negroes and therefore lessen the pressure that the integrationists were putting upon the white man. I sat there, I negotiated it, I listened to their offer, and I was the one who went back to Chicago and told Elijah Muhammad what they had offered. Now this was in December of 1960. So that, what do you want me to say? Right? That is about as clear. And this is the main lieutenant of the Nation of Islam who really built the Nation of Islam from 5,000 to scores of thousands, okay? Malcolm X was assassinated 5 days after the speech on February the 21st, 1965 at the Audubon Ballroom. Now, so we're talking about a very treacherous group, first of all, and a very fairly right-leaning group, okay? Give you an example. In 1972, the Nation of Islam attacked the Black Panther Party office in Philadelphia. Why? Why would they attack the Black Panthers? Because we had a picture of Malcolm X in the window. Nation of Islam got wild. I remember as a youth, we had to fight, physically box for corners where we sold our paper. When we showed up, right, they Nation of Islam, this is our corner. I said, all right, let's see whose corner it is. Now eventually, we We didn't want that to happen, but we had to stand our little ground. To give you a real sense of the mad dog nature of this cult, I want to mention the 1973 Hanafi Muslim Massacre. In 1973, Hanafi Muslim Massacre took place in the afternoon of January 18, 1973. 2 adults, a child, were shot to death. 4 other children ranging in age from 9 days to 10 years old were drowned. 2 others were severely injured. The murder took place at 7700 16th Street Northwest in Washington, D.C. This house was purchased for a group of Hanafi Muslims to use, and by a gentleman that was on the Milwaukee Bucks at that time. His name was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So I mean, now let's look. Who is the enemy here? What allegedly triggered it is that the brother that was staying in the house was writing propaganda against the Nation of Islam and giving it out to people in the Nation of Islam. You're caught up in this is a scam, they're getting all your money, you need to go ahead and leave these people alone. And so what do? They kill him. Not just him, but the babies. Yeah, what is the Nation of Islam? Okay, we're gonna move up to the Million Man March. A lot happened. They murdered Malcolm X, all kind of, confusion, but above all, the vacuum in leadership in the Black liberation movement allows for the Nation of Islam to make this maneuver and put themselves at the head of the community with their Million Man March, which, by the way, was totally as apolitical as they could make it, but people wanted it to be more. And so the community did, a section of the community did get behind it. Unfortunately, Nation of Islam kept arguing about the numbers. We had 1 million, but what's your program? I don't care how many people you got. What's your program? Where are you taking us? Well, sad thing is, nowhere, okay? Nowhere and fast. The All African People's Revolutionary Party provided a lot of the donkey work at the Million Man March, but where I know, I refused to go to the thing because I didn't support it and I thought it was reactionary. But more importantly, just proof of what happened, they were supposed to play a speech by Mumi Abdul-Jamal. And sure enough, they cut that, which just another, give you a sense of the Nation of Islam. Year in the 90s, a Holocaust denier by the name of David Irving came to the Bay Area. Now, in this situation, then this once again confirms the anti-Semitic tendencies, strong anti-Semitic tendencies in the Nation of Islam. The left got together and we shut their ass down right here at Berkeley. He was going to have a forum. We got to the spot. We had 300 people. We refused to move. Forum over. Victory for the working class. Small, but real. He tried then to get the YMCA across the street on Bancroft. We did the same thing, shut him down again. Now, he then went to the Nation of Islam and worked out a deal with them so a security firm that was owned by their members defended his forum on Telegraph and, I'm sorry, I might have been 24th Street and Telegraph. Somewhere around there. I never forget this because we went down to protest and I remember how squeamish people felt about attacking because I wanted to break the forum up and people didn't want to get into a physical conflict with other black people. So it caused some polarization amongst the anti-fascist forces, and Mr. Irving got to have his forum. So once again, what is the Nation of Islam? Oscar Grant is murdered, 2009. Now this shows you the contradictory nature of this group. The Nation of Islam was involved in the movement demanding justice for Oscar Grant and played, I think, a contradictory role because they did organize 100 black men who cared, which played a role in forcing that DA to resign. The DA of Oakland resigned, and then actually there were all kinds of, there was a confluence of forces. We the Oscar Grant Committee in alliance with the longshoremen had a little one-day action, semi-strike, where the longshoremen refused to go to work, and we got other workers, not much, about 2,000 people, not bad though, demanding that Messerly be indicted. Okay, he was indicted, and this, you know, I think our action played in with many, many, many other actions that were going on at the time. Okay.
That's David over there, right there. You put a slide up for it.
Okay. Yeah.
That's David Irving.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. So, Mario Woods was executed by the San Francisco Police Department December 2nd, 2015 in Bayview. Now, this was an explosion. I've been working police brutality work for years through the Oscar Grant Committee Against Police Brutality, through Cop Watch before that. You know, in the Panthers we did also anti-police brutality work. But what was important here, thousands of people got involved in this Mario Woods thing because someone took the picture, and you can see the cops had a semicircle around him. He had a kitchen knife, probably around 4 inches long, dropped the knife, winds up dude had mental problems, right, and was under the influence of drugs, and they shot him 21 times. 21 times. And when you see this video, it's on YouTube if you want to see it, it's so clear, that he was no danger to these police officers. They had him surrounded, like 10 of them. You know, so there was a swelling resentment that just caught fire in the city of San Francisco. Spontaneous actions broke out all over San Francisco. Demonstrations, rallies at San Francisco City Hall, vigils, student walkouts, marches, occupations, and hunger strikes in front of the Mission San Francisco Police Department station. All of this is going on. And we got this committee. Now this is a Justice for Mario Woods committee of 200 people. That's a big committee for a police brutality case. One of the largest I've ever participated in, and I've done it for years. So what happens? Well, Felicia Jones is an SEIU member. She managed to get us use of the SEIU hall. I think it was Local 1000 on Rhode Island Avenue in San Francisco. Minister Christopher Muhammad of the Nation of Islam got the Nation of Islam involved. And here is what I say when I say they played the role of a brake. It is one thing to be opposed to police killing. Everybody, most of the people on our side are against that. The question is, what are you going to do about it? And at the base of this movement were young people that were doing all kind of stuff. This was the beginning of Black Lives Matter in San Francisco. You had the 3%ers, and because the murder took place in Bayside, they were under attack and being gentrified, so you had that resentment going on. So there's a very fluid movement. After 1 year of work, I remember the DA in San Francisco did not want to indict and said he was turning it over to the Justice Department. So there was a meeting in Bayside, a large meeting, Bayview, I beg your pardon. And I'll never forget this because we're sitting up there and people are looking for answers, right? So what does the Nation of Islam share with us? Well, Christopher says, he said, okay, well, what we got is, we need to, there's going to be an earthquake because the white folks done wronged us. The Oscar Grant Committee had a different view. We were looking for labor action, against the city on this matter, because it was so clearly, it was an execution, it was a firing line against a disabled citizen who was mentally disabled, who they should have threw a net on him, not shot him 21 times. So eventually we start to see these, like the difference in approach. And unfortunately our committee is getting smaller all along the way. This is once again where you see the Nation of Islam played a negative role. Mark Leno, who was a San Francisco state senator and police transparency, he had written a police transparency bill, Senate Bill 1284. And by this time, the Oscar Grant Committee is looking at this legislation thing, and our position was this: we are not legislators. But if there's clearly a law that is in the interest of the working people, we're not going to pretend it's not in the... We say, yes, we should support this. We should be clear. We should be able to read it, think, and say, yeah, okay, we want to support. Well, the Nation of Islam talking that bullshit about the white man, but was unable to differentiate the general truth that most legislation is racist and against the working class and black people, but not all. So unfortunately, an opportunity was lost by that committee because we did not move on. He actually, looked, Leno came to our committee meeting and made his pitch. And I said, whoa, well, they about to blow this, but that's okay. The Oscar Grant Committee got involved in that, and we actually lobbied for that bill, and that bill became, Skinner picked it up after Leno left, and it became Senate Bill 1421, which passed last year and is now law. Small step forward, but real. And I'll explain that to you if you wish after the meeting.
Sure. Can you wrap it up?
Yes, I am. So what you're seeing, I have to wrap it up. The Woods family settled for a measly $400,000, which was, I think, the product of discord inside of the committee. But through this all, we see a pattern, a consistent pattern of the Nation of Islam, when they're not totally, you know, like just wrong and reactionary, that they played the role of a brake on that movement. And that was one of the most dynamic police brutality movements that I've seen for years. So that's my contribution for right now. Thank you.
Okay, before we